So our next presenter is Becky Nix from Utah DOT.
All right, well, I'll get us back on schedule because I've just got a real quick update from the AASHTO Technical Committee T-9 for bridge preservation. The intent of T-9 is to support states, make sure we have the publications and the research available to states in order to run an effective bridge preservation program. So I'm going to go real quick through what publications T-9 is responsible for, as well as the current research that we are promoting and working on at this time. The first publication that T-9 has is the Bridge Aesthetics source book. This was published back in 2010, and nobody's quite sure how it ended up in bridge preservation, but it seems to be the home it landed in. It has not been updated since 2010, and right now T-9 is trying to determine where it falls within the priorities for updating, but the 2010 version is out there and available to states to use. In May of 2020, they published near-surface mounted titanium alloy bars for retrofits as well as strengthening. And this is one that will be actively updated through bridge preservation. The Historic Bridge Preservation Guide, specifically looking at those historic structures that states typically have a hard time with replacing, so how do we preserve those, keep those in our systems, and effectively preserve those and keep them safe and functioning. In August of 2020, the service life design of highway bridges was published through T-9, and this is looking at exposure conditions, steel structure deteriorations, and getting those extended service lives out of your bridges, looking at chloride diffusions and how we can effectively manage those bridges and which bridges should be on extended life cycles and how to achieve those extended life cycles. In July of 2021, a lot of the publications did get some delays as they were balloted, and we all hit COVID, so this was balloted, I believe, in 2020 and then published in 2021. Bridge Preservation Actions. This one we will be working to update throughout the next year with ballot items for updating it for the new SNBI. And so there are definitely modifications that will have to happen to bring that back up to meet for the SNBI. In January of 2023, this was another one that was balloted back in 2021, but it took a little while to get published. But January of this year, we did publish the Guide to Preservation of Highway Bridge Decks, which looks at what different defects we have, how they can be treated, how to effectively manage our bridge decks and extend the life of those. This one will also have to be updated for the new SNBI, but because we just barely published it in January of this year, we won't be doing the updates this year and balloting it next year, just so we're not publishing and then the very next year going back with updates. So this probably will get updated in 25 or 26 prior to full implementation of the SNBI. As far as research, Nancy touched real briefly on the NCHRP 12117, T9 as well as T14, which is the Technical Committee on Steel, are putting a ballot item together this year to officially publish the duplex coating guide for duplex coatings this year. So that is a ballot item that will go to vote in May of this year. There is currently a pooled fund study for a bridge deck preservation tool, so this will be looking at different actions, what's available, and set up a framework for how to develop an effective bridge preservation system within your state. There are several states currently involved in this pooled fund study, but if you are interested in bringing your state into it, being involved in the development of the framework and development of this tool, Jim Nilsson with Iowa DOT would love to have any other participating states join in with the pooled fund study. And then the last major research that we are working on right now is implementation of bridge preservation actions, and this is taking the Guide to Bridge Preservation Actions, as well as the Guide to Preservation of Highway Bridge Decks, and looking at doing some pilot trainings in person and online to look at how we can implement these guides and how states can use them in order to develop a bridge preservation program, or a more mature bridge preservation program within their state. So we will be looking for DOTs to host some of these in-person workshops, as well as any of the online workshops as well, which will be a little more abbreviated rollouts of these manuals that we have available. Currently, AASHTO is possibly going through a little bit of a restructuring, but they will, as of right now, be maintaining bridge preservation as its own technical working group. It initially was going to get pulled into another one. Everyone's still kind of working through what the Committee on Bridges and Structures is going to look like in the next couple years, but we are there to support the states, make sure we're providing the research and the guidance that each of the individual states need. So thank you for that.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.